So what we need to do is to find the clues, right? So to put it in perspective, whenever we find content from any source, the first thing we need to do is to find the clues from the text, paragraphs, the premises, or whatever we have in order to understand the author's intentions. Because the author's intentions is what we are looking for, after all. In an analytical way, we may go and find indicators, as we learned. This will help us to find partial premises and conclusions. And this is something we already saw last week, right? Now, the next thing we need to do is to walk a couple of steps back to view and understand the context. The context is finally what we need to do to understand the overall idea. And then the last clues will come from the logical structure. Okay, let's focus a little bit on the context, okay? Because when we analyze the context, when we step back a little bit and take a look at the whole framework, it's like if we were on a forest and then we climb the tallest tree and then we can see the whole concept. We can see where are we going, and then we can see the path, and we can see the other mountains and trees or hills or whatever. So we know what to expect. We can analyze and we can extract the information we need. So we need to focus our attention in the author's intentions, as I said. And there are several intentions that we can look for. It's like, was it for fun, for instance? Or is it just for information? Is it to motivate an action? Is he calling an action to us? Is it for persuasion, maybe? Is it a base of argumentation? Or is it only an opinion? So this is something we need to understand very clearly, okay? And that's what we're looking for. So let's look at the principle of charity. What is the principle of charity? The principle of charity ensures that we don't disregard the rhetoric of others simply because there are some weaknesses in their arguments or the structure they are presenting to us. Okay, so it's just a way to make sure that there is justice in whatever conclusion we decide. And that is considering people maybe that they are intelligent, or that they might be right in some way, even though their evidence is not conclusive, even though their arguments are not being very logical. So we are giving them a chance to prove otherwise. So this principle is basically about respect. So now let's talk about an example. We have two people here. Clarence, a guy who's had a hard time arguing with his friends about certain political discussions. And he tries to articulate his position, but sometimes he sounds like he didn't completely think through the topic. His statements don't always express what he really means when he tries to be persuasive. Luckily, his friends Jude uses the principle of charity during their debates. This means that Jude finds the strongest interpretation of Clarence's arguments and the evidence that she finds. In other words, Jude will focus on what does make sense in Clarence's arguments and what the evidence supports. So she will try to help him to make a strong argument using his evidence and making it stronger. So he might not be right, but she's going to try to help him. That's the principle of charity. Now, this second example states that Charlie loves cats, therefore, he must be a very caring person. So how do we get to this conclusion so easily? We need to complement it to make it congruent and logical. So first thing, okay, first premise is Charlie loves cats. The second premise is a study from the University of Verona says that most people who love cats are caring people. So, therefore, the conclusion is that Charlie could be a caring person.